The truth is, fear is lying to you every single day. It whispers in your ear that you'll fail, that people will judge you, that you're not ready, that you'll lose everything. But if you strip everything down and look at your life with raw honesty, most of the things you're afraid of aren't real. They're imagined outcomes, scenarios that live only in your mind. Acting like you have nothing to lose isn't about being reckless. It's about waking up to the fact that fear is just a story, not a fact. You've been playing small, not because you're not capable, but because you're afraid of what might happen. You're afraid of being uncomfortable, of making a mistake, of hearing no. And that fear convinces you to stay safe, to play it cool, to overthink every move. But the reality is, comfort zones are not comfortable. They're prisons. And the longer you stay in that prison, the more you forget what you're actually capable of doing. When you act like you have nothing to lose, something shifts in you. You stop overanalyzing everything. You stop rehearsing failure before it even happens. You stop living for the approval of others. Instead, you begin to live for yourself, for your purpose, your growth, your truth. That's the power of this mindset. It's not about recklessness, it's about fearlessness. It's about saying, so what if it doesn't work? Because even if it doesn't, you'll still learn, you'll still grow, and you'll still be standing. That's what fear doesn't want you to realize. It wants you to believe that failure is fatal, that one rejection will define you, that one misstep will end everything. But fear is bluffing. It has no real power unless you hand it the keys. Think back to every time in your life when you hesitated because of fear. How many opportunities did you miss? How many conversations didn't happen? How many ideas stayed locked in your mind? Now think about the people who inspire you, the ones who took the leap, the ones who showed up even when it was uncomfortable. Do you think they weren't scared? Of course they were, but they moved anyway. They acted like they had nothing to lose because they knew staying stuck was the real risk. You are stronger than you think, you are braver than you act, and you are capable of so much more than you're currently doing. But to access that next level, you have to stop letting fear write your story. Every time fear says, what if it goes wrong? You say, what if it goes right? Every time fear says, you're not good enough, you say, I'll get better by doing it. That's how you reclaim your power. That's how you get your life back. Because the only thing standing between where you are and where you want to be is the courage to act. Without needing certainty, without needing permission, and without letting fear set the rules, you have to start asking yourself, what would I do if I truly had nothing to lose? Would you speak up in that meeting? Would you finally start that business? Would you walk away from what's draining you? Would you tell the truth about who you are and what you want? The answers to those questions will show you where you've been holding back. And when you act like you have nothing to lose, you start living fully, not carefully. You become bolder. You take risks that align with your values. You stop procrastinating and start producing. You realize that playing small doesn't serve anyone, not you, not the world around you. Fear will always exist, but it doesn't get to control you unless you let it. And when you decide that your dreams, your goals, your happiness matter more than your fear, something incredible happens. You start living like the person you were meant to be. Not the cautious version, not the watered-down version, the real you. So stop waiting for fear to disappear. It won't. But you can act anyway. And when you do, when you truly act like you have nothing to lose, you'll discover the most powerful version of yourself, the one that's been buried under layers of doubt and hesitation. That version of you, that's who changes the game. When you let go of needing a specific outcome, you set yourself free. That might sound strange, especially in a world that tells you to always chase results, hit targets, and measure your worth based on achievements. But the moment you become obsessed with how things must turn out, you become paralyzed. You hesitate, you overthink, you stop taking action because you're too afraid of failing. Detaching from the outcome doesn't mean you stop caring. It means you care more about the effort, the growth, and the process than you do about a picture-perfect result. And when you act like you have nothing to lose, you naturally detach from the outcome. You focus on showing up with courage and doing your part. That's where all your power is. Too often, we live like we're performing, like we're trying to get a perfect score in every area of life, at work, in relationships, on social media. We make decisions based on what will get us approval instead of what feels right. But the truth is, That mindset keeps you trapped. You stop experimenting. You stop speaking up. You stop creating. Because you're afraid of the outcome not being what you hoped for. The fear of failing, looking stupid, or disappointing others becomes so loud that you shrink your dreams to fit your comfort zone. But if you can detach from needing things to go perfectly, you open yourself up to something better than perfection, growth, resilience, and discovery. There's something powerful that happens when you say, I'm going to give this everything I've got, and I'll be okay no matter what happens. That is real confidence. That's where creativity lives. When you're not tied to an outcome, you take more risks. You get curious. You try again. You don't crumble if it doesn't work out because you know that everything is part of the process. This is how successful people operate. They're not attached to the first draft being perfect, to every launch being a hit, or every relationship lasting forever. They're committed to showing up, learning, and moving forward. And the irony? That mindset actually increases your chances of success because you're no longer stuck. You're in motion. Think about how many times you've talked yourself out of something just because you were too worried about how it would end. You didn't apply for that job because you might not get it. You didn't start the project because people might criticize it. You didn't tell someone how you really felt because they might not feel the same. That's attachment, and it's a cage. It convinces you to avoid action in the name of protecting yourself. But what you're really doing is robbing yourself of experience, of lessons, and of progress. When you act like you have nothing to lose, you break free from that trap. You start to realize that not getting what you want doesn't mean you failed. It means you're in the game. You're learning what works and what doesn't. And that data is priceless. This shift in mindset also reduces anxiety. Because when you're obsessed with the outcome, you're constantly living in the future. You're thinking 10 steps ahead. You're worrying about things that haven't even happened yet. But when you detach, you return to the present. You get focused on what you can control, your attitude, your effort, your intention. And that presence makes you more effective. It calms the noise. It sharpens your thinking. It allows you to make decisions that align with your values instead of decisions based on fear. You don't have to give up on ambition to detach from the outcome. You just need to understand that you can want something deeply and still be okay if it doesn't turn out the way you imagined. Because life has a way of surprising you. Often what you think you want isn't actually what you need. And sometimes the detours are where the real breakthroughs happen. So stop gripping so tightly. Stop trying to force everything to happen on your timeline. When you act like you have nothing to lose, you trust yourself more. You take the leap. You don't need guarantees. You become the guarantee because you know you'll be okay no matter what. And that is a level of personal power that no outcome can ever give you. It's already within you. You just have to let go to access it. But when you start to act like you have nothing to lose, you begin to see rejection differently. You stop taking it personally and start seeing it as data, feedback, redirection. It's not a dead end, it's a detour, one that often leads you to something better than what you were originally chasing. That mindset alone can change the entire trajectory of your life, because instead of avoiding rejection, you use it. Think about this. How many successful people can you name who got exactly what they wanted the first time they tried? Almost none. The most successful individuals in the world, entrepreneurs, artists, athletes, leaders, they've all faced rejection, and not just once, over and over again. They didn't get the job, they got fired, they got told this will never work, but they didn't stop. They kept going because they understood that rejection isn't failure. It's part of the process. When you act like you have nothing to lose, you stop seeing rejection as a threat to your worth and start seeing it as part of your path. One of the biggest lies your mind tells you is that rejection means you're not good enough, that if someone says no to you, it's a reflection of your value. But that's not true. Rejection is often about timing, preferences, circumstances you'll never know about. When someone says no, it's not necessarily because you did something wrong. It might be because they weren't ready, or they weren't the right fit, or something better is coming. If you act like you have nothing to lose, you don't let rejection define you. You let it refine you. You use it as fuel to improve, to pivot, to sharpen your approach. And more importantly, you keep showing up. Rejection can be your greatest teacher if you're willing to listen. It forces you to evaluate. It challenges your ego. It pushes you to get clear on what really matters. And sometimes it redirects you toward a version of success you hadn't even imagined yet. There are countless stories of people who were rejected by one opportunity only to end up in a place that fit them better, stretched them further, or fulfilled them in ways they never expected. But that only happens when you keep going, when you stop fearing the word no and start welcoming it as part of the journey. Every no you face has the potential to make you stronger, smarter, and more prepared, but only if you don't let it break you. The people who win are the ones who get rejected and still show up the next day, the ones who don't let it stop their momentum, the ones who understand that the only way to really lose is to stop trying. You might not be able to control the outcome, but you can control your effort, your attitude, and your willingness to stay in the game. There's a kind of freedom that comes when you stop fearing rejection. You speak more boldly. You take bigger chances. You ask for what you want without apologizing. You put your ideas into the world without obsessing over the reaction. That's how you grow. That's how you build resilience. And that's how you eventually get to a place where the doors that are unmeant for you start opening. Not because you avoided rejection, but because you walked through it again and again. The fear of rejection is like a wall that stands between you and everything you want. But here's the truth. That wall is paper thin. The moment you stop caring so much about what others think, the moment you realize that you will survive the no, you walk right through it. And on the other side is experience, wisdom, confidence, and often opportunities you never would have found if you hadn't had the courage to risk hearing no in the first place. So act like you have nothing to lose. Make the ask, pitch the idea, take the shot. You might hear no. You probably will. But that doesn't mean stop. It means you're in motion. And that motion is the very thing that will take you exactly where you're meant to be. Rejection isn't the enemy. It's the sign you're playing the game. And that alone puts you ahead of everyone still too afraid to even try. Courage isn't something you're born with. It's something you build. People like to think that confidence or bravery is a personality trait, something some people naturally have and others don't. But that's a myth. Courage is a skill, and like any skill, it gets stronger the more you practice it. When you act like you have nothing to lose, you're not waiting to feel ready or fearless. You're deciding to move despite the fear. That's the practice. That's how courage is built. One small action at a time, one moment of discomfort at a time, one decision to lean into what scares you instead of running from it. Most people wait. They wait for the fear to go away. They wait to feel confident. They wait until they're sure it'll work out. But that moment never comes. Because fear doesn't leave on its own, you have to train yourself to take action in its presence. Every time you do something uncomfortable, every time you push through resistance, every time you face something uncertain, you build courage. And the more you build it, the easier it becomes to keep going. Not because it stops being scary, but because you've trained yourself to do it anyway. You don't need a massive life overhaul to start building courage. It starts small. You speak up in a meeting when you usually stay quiet. You hit publish on something you've been sitting on. You say no when you usually say yes, just to keep the peace. Every one of these moments is like doing a rep in the gym. It's uncomfortable, yes, but it's making you stronger. You're developing a new identity, one that doesn't crumble under pressure, one that doesn't need everything to be perfect, one that trusts action over overthinking. That's the difference between people who grow and people who stay stuck. It's not talent. It's not luck. It's the willingness to keep showing up, to do the thing afraid, to take one more step forward. Courage is a habit, and habits are built through repetition. So if you want to become bold, decisive, and unshakable, you have to start treating courage like a daily workout. Not a one-time burst of bravery, but a lifestyle. When you act like you have nothing to lose, you start to see every challenge as an opportunity to practice courage. Instead of saying, "What if I mess up?" you ask, "What can I learn from this?" Instead of waiting for someone to validate your ideas, you back yourself. You stop needing permission and start moving forward based on your own values and instincts. That is personal power. And the best part? It compounds. Every courageous action builds on the last. Every time you do the hard thing, your comfort zone expands and the next step feels a little easier. It's not about never feeling fear. It's about mastering your response to it. Fear is a natural part of growth. It means you're stretching. It means you're doing something new, something meaningful. So instead of resisting it, you lean in. You let it be a sign that you're in the right place. That mindset shift alone is game-changing because it means fear doesn't have to stop you anymore. It becomes your signal to go, your green light, not your red one. And here's the truth most people miss. The more you practice courage, the more you build self-respect. You start to trust yourself. You start to believe that you can handle whatever comes your way. You stop shrinking and start expanding. You walk into rooms differently. You approach goals with more grit. You face setbacks with more resilience. All because you built that foundation through small, daily acts of bravery. You don't need to be fearless to change your life. You just need to be willing to act while the fear is still there. And the more you do that, the more your brain learns that you are capable. That fear is not a stop sign. That courage is not reserved for special people. It's for you, right now, exactly where you are. And if you act like you have nothing to lose, you'll realize you've had that power all along. You were just waiting to feel ready. But ready isn't a feeling. It's a decision. And that decision gets easier every time you make it. When you act like you have nothing to lose, you finally start taking ownership of your life. You stop outsourcing your decisions to other people. You stop waiting for signs, approval, or the perfect moment. You realize that no one is coming to rescue you. No one is going to magically hand you the life you want. And no one else can do the work for you. That realization isn't scary, it's liberating. Because it means the power has been in your hands the whole time. And now you get to take it back. Ownership means stepping into the driver's seat. It means holding yourself accountable not out of guilt or pressure, but because your life matters that much. Most people walk through life asleep. They go through the motions, do what's expected, and follow a path they never truly chose. And then they wonder why they feel stuck, anxious, or unfulfilled. When you live like you have something to lose, your reputation, other people's opinions, comfort, you play it safe. You say yes to things you don't want. You silence your voice. You avoid change because it feels risky. But that version of safety is just an illusion. It's not really safe to deny your dreams. It's not really safe to settle for less. It's not really safe to ignore your potential. What's truly risky is living a life that doesn't feel like yours. Ownership is about responsibility, but it's also about freedom. You get to decide what you want your life to look like. You get to design your days, your mindset, your direction. No more blaming other people. No more waiting for someone to fix it. No more giving your power away. When you act like you have nothing to lose, you start showing up differently. You get honest about where you're playing small. You start doing the hard things because you know they matter. You don't avoid discomfort, you choose it because growth lives there. And here's the truth. You already know what you need to do. Deep down, you've always known. The hard conversation you've been avoiding, the boundary you need to set, the dream you keep postponing, the behavior that's not serving you. Acting like you have nothing to lose gives you the courage to face those truths. Not because it's easy, but because you're finally done settling for less than what you're capable of. You've spent enough time dimming your light. Now it's time to own your role in building the life you want. Taking ownership also means dropping the excuses. Yes, your past shaped you. Yes, life has been unfair at times. Yes, people have let you down. But those truths don't have to be your anchor. They can be your foundation. You can use everything that's happened to fuel you instead of limit you. You can rewrite the narrative starting today. That's the beauty of acting like you have nothing to lose. You stop living in reaction and start living in creation. You build, you move, you decide. This isn't about perfection. It's about integrity. It's about knowing that your actions match your values, that you're not betraying yourself just to keep others comfortable, that you're not hiding your truth to avoid criticism. Ownership means that every step you take, even if it's messy or uncertain, is yours. and that builds confidence, real confidence, not the fake kind that comes from validation or praise, the kind that comes from doing hard things, telling the truth, and refusing to give up on yourself. You don't need permission to take ownership. You just need to decide that you're done living on autopilot. You need to decide that your dreams are worth the effort, that your voice matters, that your potential is too important to waste. When you act like you have nothing to lose, you realize the only thing you ever had to lose was time, the time you spent waiting, doubting, hesitating. But now you're awake. Now you're aware. And with that awareness comes power. You're not too late, or you're not too far behind, you're not broken, you're just ready. Ready to take the wheel, ready to show up, ready to own every part of who you are and where you're going. And once you do that, once you commit fully, everything changes. Not because the world gets easier, but because you get stronger. And that strength, that's what makes you unstoppable.